soul-piercing marvel, inheriting a relatively small pharmaceutical company at the beginning. In order to maintain his leisurely life, Kyle began to create more superheroes in Marvel World, adding a wave of minor enhancements to the existing ones. Steel Lord Tony Stark, who controls countless mechanical armies. Steve Rogers, the ultimate warrior whose will never dies and whose soul never dies. Thor Odinson, the god of thunder who governs storms and wars. In addition, with Kyle's intervention, more superheroes will be born in this extraordinary world. Director Fry. What is the purpose of your actions? Kyle Walter. This world needs more heroes, and we are the manufacturers of heroes. Half farming in the early stage, the journey in the later stage is the sea of stars. Keywords of the novel. Creating superheroes on Marvel without pop-ups, downloading the complete TXT collection of Creating Superheroes on Marvel, and reading the latest chapter of Creating Superheroes on Marvel. Chapter 1. Water Company. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Water Company, New York, Manhattan. As the most densely populated district among the 5 boroughs of New York City, it is home to many famous businesses and is also the wealthiest district in New York City. Mr. Walter, this is our plan for this quarter. Could you please take a look? The graceful blue-eyed blonde pushed open the office door and walked in, looking at the young man sitting in the office chair, while placing a pile of documents on the table. Next to him, an elderly man with white hair wearing a butler's uniform was quietly wiping the vase. After glancing at it, he withdrew it. Alice, I've said it many times, just call me Kyle. You make me look very old, and why do you have so many files? A crisp voice sounded, and Kyle Walter turned his head outside the window. His sharp face was filled with pain, and he looked at the documents on the table and sighed. Her golden eyes were filled with helplessness but couldn't refuse. Feeling restless, she rubbed her slightly messy black hair and picked up the document to start reading. This is already the 7th document he has processed today, and now Kyle feels like he's about to explode in place. There's nothing we can do about it. You just took over the company, and your opinions are full of imaginative ideas. Even the planning of the publicity department has been agreed upon, and there are also samples you brought. Alice was very excited and immediately started reporting on the progress of the work below. Originally, she looked down on this new boss, after all, he was only a 15-year-old boy. But when Kyle dealt with a few difficult problems that she couldn't handle, Alice immediately admired him and worshipped him as a child prodigy on the spot. Upon seeing this scene, Kyle gave the old man next to him a glance and urged him to quickly get rid of Alice, who was a true workaholic. Miss Alice, young master has a dinner party to attend later, so please leave with me first. The old man immediately understood Kyle's meaning and interrupted Alice, then immediately took her out. Kyle, who has gained purity, can finally think about his own affairs. After all, after traveling for so long, he should always consider some future development. That's right, Kyle is a traveler, but he still travels through the body of a newborn child. He originally wanted to make a fortune by relying on his knowledge far beyond this era for 20 years. But it wasn't until the day he was 4 years old that he saw the statue of Captain America holding a shield while visiting the World War II museum with the old butler. Kyle immediately realized that he had traveled to the Marvel Universe, and after that, by searching various information, he knew that this was the movie universe, with a relatively low difficulty level. That is to say, at the moment when he realized everything, the cheat belonging to the time traveler was also activated. System, expand the panel. Kyle shouted in his heart, and then a ASCII.FI blue screen appeared in front of him. Host. Kyle what, ability? None, own territory. Walter International Company own item. Formula for manufacturing number 7 crystal, points. 95, extraction opportunity. 0, current task. Establish a new company and draw rewards that match the theme, ultimate mission. This is Kyle's golden finger, fully named hero creation system, which can consume points in exchange for an opportunity to draw hero items. There may be equipment that allows people to become heroes by wearing it, as well as methods to tap into the potential of the human body and make ordinary people become superpowers, as well as technology-related hero skills. However, the difficulty of obtaining points for drawing is also extremely difficult. It took Kyle a total of 15 years to save up this chance to draw points. However, the items he obtained this time also made him very satisfied. The seventh crystal is one of the props that can help ordinary people become superpowers. Implanting it into the human body only takes a few minutes for the crystals to start dissolving, exerting its effect and inducing gene enhancement. It can increase the physical attributes of the implanted person by 10 to 30 times, and can also stimulate certain special abilities hidden in human genes, but the mortality rate is very high. One thing that makes Kyle very satisfied is that he has the sole right to accuse these heroes, such as being able to disable the abilities of superpowers. In this way, we can cut off the risk of superheroes created by Kyle taking action against us. System, haven't the ultimate mission been distributed yet? For this panel, apart from his own lack of ability, there is basically nothing that Kyle is dissatisfied with. The ultimate task at the bottom, however, was never told by the system and remained in the form of 3 question marks. Host, please be calm and not impatient. The cold electronic sound echoed in her ears, and Kyle decided not to worry about these matters. Now, ensuring her own safety is the most important thing. You should know that even in a movie universe with low difficulty, there will be many crises due to subsequent additions. The current situation where both parents have passed away also gives Kyle the opportunity to start working. For his parents who have agreed to marry in this lifetime, he has no emotional attachment. Both of them don't go back home a few times a year, and it's usually Gasco Vallon, the old butler of the estate, who accompanies him and helps him successfully take over the company. This company is also left behind by Kyle's father, and there are also a lot of troubles, such as some shareholders who covet his shares, which must be solved. And his cheap mother was also forcibly used by the family to form a marriage alliance, with no emotional connection between the two. As far as Kyle knows, there are at least 3 men that his mother takes care of. As for my father, it's hard to count, it's so much that we can have a model show. That's really tacky. Kyle looked at the plan for this quarter and then threw it aside, which may be a very good plan for people of this era. But for Kyle, it's a bit cliché, fresh things that young people need, and such unchanging advertising slogans only make people feel bored. At present, Walter's product development goal is a special stomach medicine, but that project team was dispersed by Kyle and thrown into the development of the 7th crystal. So Kyle needs to come up with a way to rescue Walter Company from a loss-making situation in order to free up his hands and focus on the next steps. If you want to not be led by the plot and die at the last snap, then you need to change the plot. As for how to change, Kyle already has a rough idea in his mind. By the way, the Crimson Witch and Quicksilver should still be wandering. Looking at the bright sky outside the window, Kyle suddenly stood up from his chair. Just as he thought of the mastermind behind the scenes, he remembered these 2 people. If Quicksilver had not died in Sokovia, there is no doubt that it would have been a powerful force, even preventing Miaba from obtaining those infinite gems. If the plot is correct, at this point in time, these 2 people are still living a wandering life in Sokovia. There are only 2 ways to earn points. The first is to exchange it directly with money. $1 billion for 1,000 points is a chance to draw. The second method is to interfere with the world and collect points, but this method only gives 1 chance every 15 years. The quickest way to enhance strength at this stage is to draw through the system. If a high-level technology or item equipment is drawn, Kyle can take off in place. But then he softened, and the entire market value of Water Company was only over 1 billion. It is impossible to directly withdraw 1 billion in cash now. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Crystal Implantation. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2 Crystal Implantation. Young Master, Miss Alice has already left, and we should also prepare for it. Sitting on the office chair, contemplating how to quickly make money and entering the lottery a few more times, my thoughts were interrupted by the old butler who suddenly pushed the door in. After looking at the schedule on the table, Kyle remembered that today was a big day and immediately picked up his coat and hurriedly walked out. "Are you ready, Gasco?" Walking in the spacious passage, Kyle turned his head and asked the old butler beside him, who was the first implant of the seventh crystal. This old butler is a veteran who participated in the battles of Aden and Kesselen Pass. He is almost 70 years old this year, but his body is still very strong. Kyle saw Gasco practicing military martial arts in the estate this morning, and he truly lived up to that sentence. Jiang is still old and spicy. "Young master, I have been ready since I found out you have such a magical item." Gasco fell silent for a moment, then spoke in a deep voice, full of determination. Due to post-war psychological syndrome, he did not get married, have children like a normal person. After working at Walter Manor for 30 years, he had already made it his home, and for Kyle it was like treating his own child. But due to his age, he keenly sensed that his body was gradually declining. After hearing Kyle's plan, Gasco made a request for his implantation. "Hey, let's go then." Kyle sighed and said, he really can't bear this old butler who has been accompanying him to use the number 7 crystal. This thing is very deadly. If one cannot withstand this genetic enhancement, then the consequence is death. He has emphasized this many times, but Gasco still insists on his own opinion. With a ding-dong sound, the elevator successfully came to a stop. Kyle and Gasco walked out and arrived at the Crystal Research Laboratory located on the 28th floor of the building. Originally, it was planned to be placed 50 meters underground, but he found that it would take a long time to build, so he decided to arrange the research laboratory here first. After the construction of the Underground Research Institute is completed, everyone here will have to move over and turn it into a cosmetics research room to cover up the public's ears. "Boss, the crystal has been tested and is ready for safe implantation." Upon seeing Kyle enter, the person in charge immediately put down their work and came to guide the two of them. After all, in order to allow these talents to come here and conduct research for him safely, Kyle still used some small means. After all, the people here are only employees of him. It cannot be guaranteed that some people will leak information about the seventh crystal. Some necessary protective measures are still necessary, but they are not aware of it. Following the person in charge to the detention room, Kyle smiled slightly in pain as he looked at the fist-sized seventh crystal inside. Just this small piece alone, I don't know how much resources he spent. He basically sold all his luxury cars, leaving behind a $100,000 commuter car. "Okay, go prepare to implant Gasco. Wave your hand and ask the person in charge to take Gasco to prepare, while Kyle continues to watch the seventh crystal here." The shape of this thing is an irregular circular sphere, covered in gray patterns on the surface, and the faint purple light flickers continuously along the patterns. Just implant the seventh crystal, which is cut out to be 5 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide, into the body to start eliciting reactions and evolution from the implant. This fist-sized seventh crystal is not enough to be used many times, and coupled with the high mortality rate of this gameplay, Kyle dare not use it casually. He has already informed his subordinates to look for those who are determined yet grateful, have no bad habits, and preferably have weaknesses to facilitate his control. By the way, superhero IPs should be quite profitable, right? Looking at this crystal, Kyle suddenly came up with a good idea to make money. In a past drama, the Walt Company could earn billions of dollars just by relying on superhero IPs. The names of the two companies are identical. Kyle thinks he should be able to succeed. Maybe he can set up a Superboy group and double link to PK in the future. "Boss, the implantation work is ready. Please move to the specially tempered glass and watch." While Kyle was contemplating his own money-making plan, the person in charge, who had changed into a yellow isolation suit, walked over and said that the first implantation of the seventh crystal was about to begin. "How much did this device cost me?" Following the person in charge to the designated location, Kyle discovered that there was an area completely enclosed by specially made tempered glass, with a silver-white device about 3 meters high inside. Just by looking at this appearance, he felt a bit intimidating, completely imitating the style from a science fiction movie. "It's okay, let's take a look at the implantation work first." Upon hearing this question, the person in charge was clearly panicked and immediately began to shift the topic. "The cost of this item is particularly expensive and cannot be known by their own boss." Don't be fooled by Kyle's young age, but he is a very money-loving guy. The person in charge has only seen him once, lying on the US dollar sleeping and dreaming. This implantation module is made of titanium alloy on the outer layer and constructed from polymer materials internally, not including other precision equipment inside. Afterwards, please organize your research laboratory expenses and send them to my office. After giving the person in charge a fierce look, Kyle turned his head to look inside the field. Gasco had already taken off his clothes, leaving only a pair of underwear. Next to them, several researchers wearing white coats were conducting modulation work on the machine inside, and the side effects of the failure of crystal number 7 were extremely serious. The human experimental body number 087 is ready and requests to begin implantation. Let's get started. As the silver-white cabin inside slowly opened, Kyle's gaze became more serious. The birth of the first superhero may have happened today. 087 is the code name for Gasco. The previous 86 experimental subjects were all various animals, but unfortunately, none of them survived genetic induction and died in an explosion. The number 7 crystals used by animals are not many, about half the size of a nail cap. After all, their level of development is not as high as that of humans. "Boss, the next scene may be a bit scary, please be prepared first." Let Kyle know in advance that the person in charge can press the remote control button in their hand. In case Gasco doesn't make it through, they can also prepare him mentally in advance. To be honest, even after working in scientific research for so long, the person in charge has never seen an object with such a domineering energy structure. It's like forcibly replacing old genes with new ones. However, this new gene needs to be more advanced and powerful, to the extent that it can lead humans into a new realm, which is the superpower. In the room, the silver-white cabin covered Gasco's cage, and the anesthesia gas made him lose consciousness. A high-precision surgical knife cut a wound on his chest. The elongated 7th crystal is implanted into the body from the wound, and then the robotic arm begins to perform wound suturing work. Time passed slowly, and Kyle stayed here all along. "Boss, you can now open the implantation module." After looking at the time on the watch, the person in charge whispered, saying that nothing had happened and he couldn't confirm Gasco's current situation. Kyle didn't reply, but nodded. After receiving instructions, the person in charge pressed the remote control device in their hand, and the implanted hatch inside the room began to slowly open. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The birth of the first superhero. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The birth of the first superhero, call out. At the moment the cabin unfolded, the sound of heavy breathing swept through the entire room, and white mist dispersed. Did you succeed? Kyle immediately came to the glass, clenched his fists, and kept looking inside. If Gasco didn't succeed, his series of plans would be postponed. Until a superhero who could survive even after transplanting crystals appeared, Kyle was able to carry out his plans recklessly. Given his current strength, it is completely impossible for him to make bold reforms. However, there are still many shareholders at Water who are spying on Kyle. A familiar feeling, and even stronger. Gasco's heavy voice rang out, and everyone present began to get excited. Kyle also released his tightly clenched fist, with a hint of a smile on his face. With Gasco's combat power, even if he doesn't acquire any special abilities, he can still achieve many things simply by increasing his physical strength. Oh my god. On the 087th, you managed to hold on. The person in charge grabbed his own hair and ran into the room, beginning to explore Gasco's body, feeling the envy in his eyes as he evolved into a human body. He is a smart person who knows that he has been tied to the water company since entering this laboratory, and he is very aware of the consequences of betrayal. Even the methods used by Kyle on him were detected by the person in charge through magnetic resonance imaging equipment, but he was not prepared to remove them. After encountering such a magical thing as the seventh crystal, he also wanted to evolve and gain powerful power below one person and above 10,000 people. The best way to obtain this crystal is to bring enough credit to Kyle. As for secretly implanting it, the person in charge thinks he may not live for a second. That backhand, but one that can eliminate him in an instant, and then his family will also face Kyle's revenge. Not bad, now you can safely get rid of those troublesome old guys. Kyle was very excited in his heart. The shareholders in the company have been restless since he took office, and even gathered to deal with him. The most important thing is that those old guys have more than 10 elite bodyguards around them, and ordinary assassins have no chance of succeeding. And Kyle can't go too far, after all, these people are all his uncles, in some sense. Gasco, how do you feel? Using his fingerprints to open the door of the room, Kyle walked in directly. He couldn't wait to see Gasco's performance now. After seeing Kyle come in, Gasco immediately walked over, and now his full face was also revealed. The withered muscles became swollen again, and it seemed that they contained powerful energy. White hair turned black, and all the scars left on the body disappeared. Very great, young master. I feel like I can blow someone up with just one punch. Without hesitation about his naked body, Gasco made a formal military salute to Kyle, and his two huge chest muscles shook a little. Kyle walked forward and pinched the muscle blocks on Gasco's arm twice. The first feeling of getting it was incredibly hard, like steel that had been tempered through countless trials and tribulations. Ryan, take Uncle Gasco to test and see how strong the evolution brought by crystals is. Saying to the person in charge behind him, Kyle left here. The crystal was successfully completed, and it seemed that Gasco had not awakened his superpowers. However, just by strengthening his body and adding to the opponent's formidable abilities, Kyle also felt that Gasco would not be inferior to the two agents from the Divine Shield Bureau. Even though Gasco has not played for many years, after a period of training, he believes that the opponent will return to their previous level. Returning to the top office, Kyle opened a drawer and took out a list of shareholders who needed to be cleaned. His father left him a total of 53% of the shares, with a relative controlling stake, but those old guys were still able to hold on to Kyle in certain matters. After all, his age is still a bit young now. If it weren't for Gasco's help, it's uncertain whether Kyle would have succeeded in sitting in this position. A group of old trash who live a simple life with corpses, holding the most money but doing nothing, only indulging in extravagance and drinking outside. It's better to return your shares. Kyle sneered, none of the 7 people on the list still have the original intention of starting a business. Indeed, they may have done well before, but now. Not anymore. From the moment they wanted to take action against Kyle, this matter was irreparable. Otherwise, considering that we had been together for so many years, at most we would have given them some money to abdicate. As for those who have not acted or acted as bystanders, Kyle will not do anything to them and will reclaim their shares in a normal manner. Those individuals' shares have been fully recovered, and I now hold 75% of the shares, giving me absolute control. As long as Kyle obtains absolute control, he can temporarily put aside the affairs of Walter Company and let him continue to follow his old path and focus on developing drugs. And he wants to establish a new biotechnology company to cultivate superpowers created using crystals. Dong dong dong, the office door was knocked on, and Kyle pressed the list under the file and shouted to the outside to come in. Boss, this is the test data for number 087, as well as the laboratory's expense report. Ryan walked in with 2 documents, and due to the company's current rudimentary equipment, there were not many projects that could be tested, so the testing was quickly completed. At the first moment after reading this information, Ryan was instantly amazed and immediately put down his work and ran over. Power and speed. Looking at these 2 things alone, Kyle's eyes became bright, and the strength test reached 7,500 pounds. The 100-meter sprint only took 3.7 seconds to complete. Of course, this speed is in a sprint state, and if it were to move at a constant speed, it would definitely be much slower, but this kind of data is also very impressive. As for the rest, Ryan needs to find time for testing, such as bone density or blood tests. Boss, 087 also gained a special ability, similar to the bullet time in movies. After seeing the satisfied expression on Kyle's face, Ryan once again delivered a heavyweight message, revealing Gasco's awakening of superpowers. Upon hearing this, Kyle instantly became calm and stood up from his chair, quickly inquiring. Are you sure it's bullet time? How effective is it? How long is the duration likely to be? This is a particularly powerful ability. Don't underestimate the effect of bullet time. It's not an exaggeration to say that even if Captain America comes, Gasco can block the opponent. In Gasco's full physical state, it can be used for 5 minutes, but the body's energy will be rapidly depleted during use, and it needs to be replenished in a timely manner afterwards. Ryan immediately reported accurate information to Kyle, and as for Gasco, he is still replenishing energy in the laboratory and has not recovered. Upon hearing this, Kyle showed a satisfied expression and took out the previous paper slip from the document, handing it over to Ryan. Tell Gasco to go and get rid of all the people up here tonight. Remember to forge a scene, preferably an accidental death. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Mastering the Company. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Mastering the Company. The next day, at the shareholder meeting of Water Company. Everyone sitting here was trembling with fear, not daring to make any small movements, and a cold sweat kept flowing from their foreheads. Glancing at the 7 empty chairs, the fear on their faces became even more intense. As colleagues who have worked together for several years, they understand very well what these people have done before and also know what happened last night. In just one night, all 7 shareholders died in a car accident or accidental shooting. If no one was behind them, they wouldn't believe it. Yo, good morning everyone. How was your sleep last night? Kyle walked in alone and smiled warmly when he saw these shareholders, saying that their consciousness was not too bad either. He thought he was going to have a showdown this morning, but judging from the reactions of these people just now, it's unnecessary. Kyle, we're not on the same side as Noyce, as you know, we're already old and don't want to get involved in your affairs. We just want to quietly take the money. In silence, an elderly man with a calm face stood up with a cane and said, "This is one of the elders who founded the company with Kyle's father and is now in his 60s. And the Noyce mentioned by the other party is the one who recently led the pressure on Kyle's shareholders to monopolize the company. Oh, dear Uncle West, of course I know your plans, otherwise you would think you could still stand here today. What's the point?" Kyle sat calmly in his own chair and said that these people were not involved in forcing him or using any shady means behind his back. Otherwise, he would have had Gasco deal with all these people together long ago, and West alone had a 10% stake in Water Company. Since you already have your own ideas, then go ahead and do it to your heart's content. I have no objection here. After Swift finished speaking, he closed his eyes and stopped speaking. His family was happy, so he naturally dared not take such a big risk again. Great, what about you guys? Kyle placed the 7 documents he was holding on the table. These were the share transfer contracts of those people, and those shares had already been legally transferred to him. We definitely have no other opinions. Yes, young Master Kyle, please feel free. We will definitely not stop you. As long as you give us a command, Master Kyle, we will definitely cooperate and have no objections at all. The remaining shareholders also began to express their opinions, jokingly, that this is a matter of life and fortune, and they have struggled for most of their lives to finally enjoy it. Moreover, since Kyle can deal with those few, it proves that this 15-year-old boy is by no means an ordinary person. Seeing these people all beginning to show loyalty, he didn't do anything to eliminate them, but spoke kindly. Is that right? Then please continue to work hard, uncles, and let's strive to build a water company that surpasses the Stark Group as soon as possible. After the meeting. Young master, don't you need to take care of these people? Gasco walked into the conference room and said that he had been acting as a guard outside just now, and he also heard the content of the meeting. Now he is worried that those shareholders may only agree on the surface, but they will still make some small moves behind the scenes. It's okay, some people are more useful alive than dead. Kyle knew that keeping them might expose Walter Company to risks, but in the event of an experiment mishap, someone would always have to take the blame. This is also the reason why he left those shareholders behind, using their last remaining heat to throw them out directly as a shield. By the way, Gasco, there's a DP transaction tonight at New York Harbor. You can try it tonight and destroy the DP. Just as he was about to get up and leave, Kyle thought of something again. He could take this opportunity tonight to test Gasco's current strength. That group of gangsters can be used as a prop to test their strength. Can Gasco successfully win against 100 enemies holding weapons? Okay, leave it to me. Gasco nodded and said that he had just received his battle suit today, which the technical department had developed overnight. He originally wanted to apply to Kyle to crack down on criminals and test this suit, but before Gasco could say anything, Kyle brought it up on his own. Then I'll leave first. I didn't even sleep well early in the morning, and I have to go inspect other departments. Covering his mouth and yawning, Kyle bid farewell to Gasco and went to inspect the various departments under his command. At present, the products under development by the Water Group, in addition to the special stomach medicine, are a makeup liquid. Kyle knows how much profit this thing has. And the level of popularity goes without saying, as long as the effect is good enough, those women will go crazy and buy like crazy. Adding this formula is still the initial gift given to Kyle by the system, with the greatest effect being whitening and delaying skin aging. Research and Development Department of No. 7 Crystal. As soon as Kyle entered, the person in charge detected him through surveillance and immediately put down his work and rushed over. The stability of Crystal No. 7 is particularly excellent, unless it is deliberately and forcibly destroyed, it is no different from ordinary crystals. Ryan, come over here, I need to ask you something. Coincidentally, Kyle has come here and needs to ask Ryan about some things. He now feels the shortage of manpower in the company. Is there anything I can do for you, young master? And Ryan was also a bit strange. He originally wanted to take the other party to see the new discovery of the 7th crystal, but he was called to the corridor. Moreover, judging from Kyle's solemn demeanor, it seems like something really important that requires his help. It's like this, do you have any senior or junior students? The company is planning to launch new projects and there is a shortage of manpower. Kyle briefly talked to Ryan about his plans and the challenges he is currently facing. This guy has a master's degree from Oxford and definitely has a way out. At that time, Kyle paid a great price to dig Ryan over, but the other party's ability did not disappoint him. Well, to be honest with you, I do have a few friends here who are not very satisfied with their current positions, and they also have strong abilities. Ryan pondered for a moment and replied that his friend had complained to him a while ago about not understanding the hidden rules of the workplace and being constantly suppressed by the leaders. If what Kyle provides is suitable, then Ryan is 100% confident that they will all come to work at Water Company. Great, then this matter is up to you. As long as you have enough ability, the company will directly accept all orders, and only the company can provide it. You can go and coordinate with Alice later. After speaking to Ryan, Kyle left the R&D department of number 7 Crystal and was about to prepare to register a subsidiary. He had already thought of a name. It's called Umbrella Company. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The first battle unfolds. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The first battle unfolds. What manner? With a total area of up to 2,000 square meters, Kyle naturally cannot give up here. He is already working on renovations, but the speed is a bit slow. In the design, this will be a place to store valuable items, as listed in one of the new plans to be carried out later, which is the human body special fortified serum. This is also the first task that Kyle plans to assign to the Umbrella Company, using this serum to allow him to enter the military system. Alternatively, magical items or technological items extracted from the system will be saved here together. However, these are all plans for future development, and now Kyle is in dire straits. I didn't expect you to be so fast. Just returned to the estate, Kyle was surprised to see Gasco diligently exercising in the courtyard. At this time, he should be adjusting his battle suit. After inspecting 2 departments, Kyle immediately returned to the estate to start preparing for class. That's right, it's just classes. Due to the special nature of her identity, Kyle's courses are all taught through private tutoring. The group of people from the technical department threw me the box containing the combat suit and then drove me back. Do you want to take a look together? Gasco said with a hint of helplessness, then picked up the towel hanging next to him and wiped the sweat stains off his body. However, he never watched the battle suit without permission, but planned to wait for Kyle to come back and watch it together. With that in mind, I would like to see how the combat uniforms produced by the group of people from the technical department look. Kyle also happened to have this intention, and followed Gasco directly into the interior of the house to the center of the hall, where a silver-white suitcase was placed on the table. Gasco directly placed the box flat, placed his fingers in the locked position, and used his fingerprints to open it. This level is a bit too low. Looking at the headsets and battle suits inside the box, Kyle rubbed his hands and took out these 2 items, laying them flat on the sofa. The entire combat suit is made of pure black and made of special dark materials, especially at night, which can blend directly with the darkness. The red filamentous stripes spread down from the left shoulder, forming the 3 numbers 087 behind and finally converging on the right shoulder. It has to be said that this design is a bit out of line with Kyle's aesthetics, it's just too monotonous, and it's just a combination of Hulk's shorts. I feel pretty good about it. It's more convenient to operate at night, and the technical department says it can still prevent handgun bullets. Gasco touched his chin and said with satisfaction, this combat suit really suits him, so it's almost impossible to be detected during night missions. Even he was considering whether to learn assassination techniques so that he could also act as a killer when he had free time. Let's not talk about this for now. How do you feel about implanting crystals? Is it pain or something? After losing interest in the battle suit, Kyle plans to inquire about the implantation process of the 7th crystal, and he is considering whether he should also have a wave of implantation. You should know that now Kyle is just like an ordinary person, with no other means, and this feeling makes him extremely uncomfortable. Is it painful? That's not true. Consciousness is also a vague state, and to be specific, it's particularly drowsy. Gasco recalled what had happened at the time, and he didn't feel anything wrong. After Ryan's examination, there was no problem at all. Sleepiness. Kyle was a bit confused. According to Ryan's words, the experimental animals experienced tearing pain throughout their bodies after implantation. After 10 minutes to half an hour of struggle, the body will start to expand and eventually explode. Yes, it's drowsiness, like not sleeping for decades. As soon as you close your eyes, you'll immediately fall asleep. And I couldn't bear to close my eyes anymore, but thinking of your instructions, young master, I broke the bone in my left arm and stabbed it with flesh and blood, using the pain to forcefully hold on. Gasco described the process at that time, but it was all done using the conscious body and had nothing to do with the real body. The feeling after implantation of crystals is like consciousness entering another level, where consciousness also possesses entities. After listening to Gasco's brief introduction, Kyle immediately cut off the idea of having his own crystal implanted. If this doesn't work out, it's all over. For the safety of his own life, Kyle decided not to risk himself and would use the magical items or technology he had drawn later. Cough cough, I have a general understanding. You go prepare for the night's operation first. I have prepared all the weapons for you. They are all produced by Stark Industries and the quality is absolutely top-notch. After careful consideration, Kyle regained his composure and said to Gasco, "These things are already ready and waiting for the user to arrive. At present, there are still several months until the proud Tony Stark goes missing in Afghanistan, when the other party is still engaged in arms business. And Kyle naturally wouldn't choose those cheap weapons. If the quality is not good for Gasco to use, he probably won't just scrap them a few times. In this case, it is natural to choose Stark weapons with better quality and a slightly higher price than those weapons. For this purchase, Kyle directly purchased a complete set of individual light combat weapons, and prepared 10,000 rounds of ammunition, which is enough for Gasco to use for a period of time. Time flew by, and soon it arrived at 9 o'clock in the evening. New York, this evil city, also began to show his own side. Gasco, you have installed a miniature camera on your shoulder. Show yourself tonight and let me see your strength. Due to the strengthened Gasco's height reaching 1.9 meters, Kyle is currently not fully developed and only 1.7 meters tall. I still have some distance to go and pat the other person's shoulder, so I can only pat Gasco's arm and advise. Last night, Kyle did not participate in how the other party resolved the shareholders, and it was entirely up to Gasco to take action. But tonight, it's a transaction between two gangs, so there's not much to consider. Kyle can also use this to observe Gasco's strength. Okay, young master, let's watch my performance tonight. Carrying 2 rifles on his back, with pistols tied to his thighs on both sides, and 2 short knives half an arm long hanging from his calves, he was fully armed. Gasco is very satisfied with his current self. If he had carried so many things before, it would have been a considerable burden, but now he doesn't feel at all. Goggles are also specially designed versions with various functions, including contact function and infrared detection device, allowing for clear visibility even at night. After determining the location, Gasco immediately left here and entered the garage. He drove into Kyle's only remaining commuter car and set off. It's really exciting. After Gasco left, Kyle sat in his chair, looking at the screen displayed on the laptop in front of him, filled with anticipation. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Port Combat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Port Combat up to the east of New York Harbor. Originally, even at night, there would be people patrolling here, but tonight it's a bit different as no one would disturb. As one of the well-known gangs in New York, the Snake Gang is going to conduct transactions here tonight and will naturally spend money to take care of these people. Boss, why do you choose to trade in such a place? A crowd of about 50 people has already gathered here, with a table and 2 chairs ahead, one of which already has its owner. The strong man in a black suit, holding a cigar in his hand, is sitting there. As the leader of the Viper Gang, he must personally preside over this transaction tonight. There are numerous containers as obstacles around here, and the interior is like a maze. As long as you hide inside, you can escape. There is enough distance from those damn police officers, and this kind of place is naturally a particularly suitable place for trading. Billy gave his little brother a faint glance and said, "He's increasingly realizing how foolish these people under him are. They can't even tell such a simple thing. The most important thing is that this place has been completely sealed off by Billy, and today neither DP nor money can escape his palm." About 15 minutes have passed. A convoy of 8 regular Ford Explorers began to drive into this area, and the dazzling lights captivated everyone. "Oh, dear Mr. Billy, let's celebrate tonight's happy transaction." Walking down with a car full of people, the leader looked at Billy, who was already prepared, and generously greeted him before sitting in front of him. Both of their subordinates also had a very tacit understanding, with 10 members each emerging from the two waves of people and starting to act as lookouts scattered around. Internally, the two sides are about to start trading, and Billy's remaining DP is running low. Those customers are all in a hurry. Outside the port dock, a black improved version of Lexus is parked here, and in the driver's seat, Gascoigne sees the convergence of the two sides. "Young master, I need to start taking action now. Next, I will switch the contact to receiving mode." After preparing the props on his lower body, Gascoigne said a word and adjusted the communicator. He opened the car door and rushed out, merging into the darkness with one swift step. He originally intended to go straight in, but after seeing so many teams, Gascoigne decisively gave up on this idea. He couldn't resist those over 100 people. And Kyle, who was in the estate, also smiled helplessly. To be honest, he was also a bit surprised by this battle. I thought it was a small transaction, but seeing so many people, Kyle knew he had hit a big fish this time. The night gradually darkened, and the moonlight was also obscured by dark clouds. There are 7 guards and 3 secret guards at the front door. First, deal with those at high places. Using infrared detection to locate the hidden guards, Gascoigne took down the sniper rifle behind him and shot down the enemy at the top, then infiltrated through the darkness. Due to the transition from direct invasion to covert assassination, Gascoigne naturally had to make some preparations, such as installing silencers on all firearms. Next, there are 3 secret sentries. Gascoigne pressed the button on his goggles, and the blue control panel in front of him instantly turned red, displaying all 3 white humanoid figures on it. This pair of goggles was crafted by Celtics and has multiple uses. He plans to come into contact with Tony Stark later. There is no other reason, but the other party's research ability is high enough. Kyle feels that he needs his help with some of the auxiliary props he has envisioned. After all, in Marvel world, highly intelligent talents generally have some flaws, either genetic mutations or super technology, and then suddenly become wizards. Putting the sniper rifle behind him, Gascoigne pulled up 2 pistols from his legs and rolled over to the back of the container, aiming directly at the 3 secret guards. Even with a silencer installed, there was still a gunshot sound no less than a small firecracker, but it did not attract attention. On the container about 60 meters to the right, 6 armed gang members smoking at each other are talking. Gascoigne pulled out 2 short knives from his legs, reintegrated into the darkness, and began to sneak towards that side. After crossing several containers, Gascoigne arrived not far from the last few enemies and looked at the 6 people with cold eyes. With a flash of his figure, he took 5 steps to cross the remaining few meters and charged straight towards the opponent, his eyes filled with slaughter. Like a cheetah hunting, the short knife in hand instantly pierced through a person's throat with a lightning-fast force that covered their ears. Fresh blood spurted out from the wound in an instant, but Gascoigne had anticipated and dodged first. While the remaining 5 people had not yet reacted, he cut his throat once again. Until 2 companions died, the remaining 4 reacted and frantically searched for their weapons, while also wanting to remind their companions by shouting. But how could Gascoigne give them this opportunity? A high side kick knocked the person in front of them to the ground, quickly pulled out the pistol, and used his heel to kick up and directly loaded the pistol. Fingertips pulled the trigger, accompanied by 3 flickering flames, and all 6 gang members were eliminated, taking up to 15 seconds. Gascoigne, even people with special training can do this kind of operation. What I want to see is your true strength. Kyle, who has been watching the battle, also conveyed his opinion through the communicator. If it were Natasha or Hawkeye, they could quickly solve this group of people. And what he wants to see is Gascoigne's true strength, the power that has evolved through the 7th crystal. As you wish, young master. Taking off the silencer from the pistol, Gasco gave the person on the ground who had already been knocked unconscious a shot. Since Kyle wants to see his true strength, Gasco is not polite and just needs to go straight in. He now realizes that this group of people, apart from having weapons in their hands, are basically no different from ordinary people. Perhaps the body is stronger than a normal person, but without any special training, it can no longer be compared to Gasco. Not good. Something's wrong. After removing the muffler, the gunshots were very loud and were heard directly by the two parties involved in the transaction. Quickly, both leaders knew that something had happened, and immediately picked up each other's suitcases, without considering arguing or negotiating terms. "Dale, take your people and let's go quickly," Billy said with a gloomy expression, unable to understand how his trading ground was exposed, unless there were insiders in the gang. The party trading with Billy is currently facing some trouble as two grenades are thrown from somewhere and happen to fall into the center of the crowd. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Bullet Time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Bullet Time Boom. The sound of the grenade explosion was incredibly loud, and the flames accompanied by the shockwave overturned everyone to the ground, killing several people who were close in distance. "Damn it, who is it?" The leader tightly held onto the bleeding head and shouted with a fierce expression. The fragments directly scratched his forehead, and the blood flowing from the wound covered the left half of his face. "I thought it was just an ordinary black eating, black trading, but I didn't expect that they were just about to take action when someone disrupted the situation." And while this group is searching for the murderer, Billy's group on the other side is also in trouble at this moment. Just as they were about to drive away from this troublemaking place, an iron door of a container flew in from a distance and directly cut off a car. "Siete, there's a surprise attack," Billy shouted with a look of fear on his face at the moment. The car he was about to get in was the one he was about to get in, but he was attracted by the explosion and didn't get on. Looking in the direction flying towards the iron gate, there was a person standing on the blue container, completely shrouded in a black combat suit. It is already clear that this is the culprit that interrupted the transaction between them. "Young master, please keep an eye on it." Gasco said a faint sentence, and then he jumped back and forth on the container at an extremely fast speed, dodging the attack. The bullet hit the container at his feet, making a series of crisp sounds, but none of them hurt him. With alternating hands, the pistol was pulled out from the thighs, and the massacre began against the gang members below. Each bullet could take away one person. After strengthening, Gasco was able to lock the enemy even though he was more than 10 meters away, and his weapons were awesome. "Fagn, why don't you come and help quickly? Do you also want to die here?" Seeing that most of his subordinates had suffered losses from being beaten by the other person, Billy also panicked and shouted at the leader over there who was dealing with the injury. Due to the large size of the wound cut by the fragments, if not bandaged in time, it may lead to infection. Fagn immediately had someone treat him. After hearing Billy's shout, he turned his head to look at the convoy that had been completely destroyed by 2 grenades, and a hint of ferocity appeared on Faga's face. Now the transportation has been destroyed, and he still doesn't know who attacked him. Working with Billy is the only way out now. "You guys, take someone to help Billy deal with that attacker, I want him dead." After giving orders to the remaining people on his side, Fagn also picked up a spray and followed. 2 grenades caused them to lose more than 10 people. As the leader of the gang, Fagn has also experienced several gang wars and has a certain level of combat effectiveness. After the number of people increased, Gasco's speed noticeably slowed down, and even though he had evolved, facing the siege of these dozens of guns would not be easy. "Gasco, use your abilities." Upon seeing this scene, Kyle, who had been watching through the camera inside the estate, also issued instructions that the bulletproof function of this battle suit could not withstand so many attacks. If there were a few scattered bullets like this at once, there would be no problem at all and they could be collected according to the order. "Okay, young master." Gasco jumped to the ground, his eyes slowly closed, and when he opened them again, the whole world underwent a different transformation in his eyes. The frequency of heart beating rapidly increases, the brain is rapidly running, adrenaline begins to secrete, and the body's energy expenditure also increases several times. At this moment, in Gasco's eyes, the bullets flying towards him became incredibly slow and could be dodged with just a dodge. It's much more enjoyable than using it in the laboratory. Feeling this perspective again, Gasco withdrew his pistol and replaced it with 2 short knives. He only needed close combat to deserve this ability. Easily dodged the incoming bullets, quickly walked towards the positions of those people, and launched an attack with a short knife aimed at the neck and heart. These 2 positions are the top priority choices for a short knife, whether it's a stab or a slash, they can both deliver a fatal blow. Is this the effect of bullet time? Inside the estate, Kyle propped his chin with both hands and his face turned a bit pale. After all, this was the first time he had seen such a bloody scene. For the first time in life, seeing someone kill someone, and with the clearest first perspective, Kyle couldn't help feeling a bit nauseous. However, after a period of time, this feeling gradually calmed down, and it has now been basically okay. In the video, Gasco's movements are incredibly smooth, always able to dodge those bullets and have already dealt with several enemies. Every flicker of silver represents the dissipation of a life. Gasco, who had activated the bullet time, saw the attacks of those people becoming unusually slow in his eyes and easily evaded. At this point, there's no need to continue watching. Close the computer, Kyle already knows the ending, and watching it again is just a waste of time. After seeing Gasco's strength, he immediately wanted to create a few more superpowers. It is basically impossible for ordinary people to dismantle the locked door of a container without tools. But Gasco just used his hands to directly break the iron chain, and then pulled hard, breaking the connection of the iron door and forcefully pulling it down. Recently, the special stomach medicine has entered the production stage, and the umbrella company should be able to apply for it tomorrow. It's getting busy again recently. The main thing at present is to make money. Before the official plot starts, the efficiency of obtaining points is particularly low. Only 1 billion can be exchanged for a chance to draw, and now Kyle can only rely on special stomach drugs, which are specially developed to cope with the current environment. Due to the increasingly chaotic lifestyle of modern people, there has been an increase in the number of patients with stomach diseases. Kyle's special stomach medicine can be said to be a blessing for stomach disease patients. This has added some weak energy emitted by the 7th crystal, and the effect is excellent one by one. After the final debugging is done and confirmed to be completely safe and error-free, Water Company can start selling this special drug. Even if this project fails, Kyle still has one last resort, which is beauty liquid. As long as the effect is good enough, female customers can be crazy. Young master, I have already taken care of it and am currently on my way back to the estate. Just as Kyle was fantasizing about making money, Gasco's voice came through the earphone, indicating that the gang had already been dealt with. Looking at his watch, it had only been 5 minutes and Gasco's speed surprised Kyle a bit. Gasco carries a specially designed energy stick that can immediately restore energy after using the bullet time, without requiring him to worry too much. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. New Discoveries. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 New Discoveries. By the time Gasco returned to the estate, it was already very late. Kyle briefly chatted with the other party and then went back to his room to sleep. After all, he is still a 15-year-old boy and must ensure sufficient sleep time. Time flows like water, and one night passes quickly. Due to the murder scene last night, Kyle didn't sleep well all night, but having this experience is enough. Young master, this is the money I brought back from there last night. I believe you will need it. After serving Kyle in a suit, Gasco took out a silver-white suitcase from the compartment. He had confirmed that it was all genuine cash. And after careful counting, there are a total of 500,000, which is enough for Kyle to solve the urgent situation, especially for the new company. Alice has already applied and can complete it today with the money offensive allowed by Kyle. But the consequence of doing so is that the small amount of money in Kyle's account has been further reduced to less than 7 digits. Not bad, this 500,000 should be enough to put the first batch of machinery into production. Opening the box and looking at these banknotes, Kyle had already figured out how to use them, which happened to open the production line. At present, his task is to earn enough money for the lottery and disrupt the plot to collect points. At present, Kyle's most favored Crimson Witch and Quicksilver have been sent to Sokovia for search, and we believe there will be results soon. Get dressed and have breakfast. Kyle and Gasco took a car to the company. Today, he plans to borrow some money from his uncles and attend the evening exchange party. This evening party, which Tony Stark will attend, is exclusive to the upper echelons of New York. Like Kyle, they can only be considered above average and have been in a loss-making state in recent years. Good morning, boss. As soon as she entered the office door, Alice was already standing here, holding 7 or 8 folders in her hands, with a smile on her face. Upon seeing this scene, Kyle's face instantly changed from joy to sadness as he glanced at the old butler next to him and said, "I still have a meeting to attend. You go talk to Gasco, I'll withdraw first." After speaking, Kyle immediately ran behind at a speed comparable to that of an athlete, not wanting to be bombarded by these annoying documents. Before the two of them could react that Kyle was nowhere to be seen, Alice started staring at Gasco in front of her, with a smile on her face that was almost like a demon. Even though Gasco has been strengthened with the 7th crystal, there is still a feeling of coldness in his back at this moment. When I was young, I fought for a lifetime, but after retiring from the military, I started learning what it took to be a butler. I was completely clueless about handling documents. Miss Alice, look at my age, can you spare me once? Gasco's white hair turned black. To outsiders it was due to the use of hair dye, but it actually made him look younger. For this kind of request, workaholic Alice was obviously unable to accept it, so she pulled Gasco into the office and began to supervise him. As Kyle's private secretary, she is not afraid of this old butler at all. Work is the most important thing. Number 7 Crystal Research Laboratory. Kyle, who has freed herself from Alice, is now wandering here, watching these researchers conducting various bizarre experiments on mice. Ryan, are you sure you want to give this thing to the little mouse to drink? Looking at the white mouse inside the experimental box and the box of number 7 liquid crystals that had been dissolved in water outside, Kyle was speechless. How much did it cost to produce such a number 7 crystal, but you just ended up being so careless? Boss, this is the opening of a new path. We have always thought that only the implantation effect is the best, but we have not thought about what other methods would look like. As a senior genetic research expert, Ryan's idea is how to more efficiently utilize the 7th crystal and find another new path. After watching Gasco implant last time, Ryan felt that there should still be room for the 7th crystal to be discovered. Okay, then you start the experiment. I'll be watching here all the time. There's no way. Kyle doesn't understand this kind of thing either, so he can only leave it to the other party to study, otherwise he would have personally taken action. After obtaining permission, Ryan pinched the mouse's mouth open and used a dropper to extract the liquid number 7 crystal, which was then poured into the mouth of the experimental subject. Alright, let's take a look at the changes now. After finishing, Ryan immediately pulled out his hands and pressed the lid down here to prevent the white mouse from jumping out directly. Kyle also pulled a chair and sat here ready to watch. It is said that none of the animals that used the 7th crystal survived. About 5 minutes later, the little white mouse inside the box, from a coma, began to have black fur on its body, becoming incredibly sharp and flashing with a metallic luster. 2 eyes turned extremely red with blood, and 1 pair of claws became sharp, starting to collide incessantly inside the glass box. Ryan, what is the situation? Kyle immediately asked the other party after seeing this behind the scenes. I don't know either. At this point, Ryan was also somewhat unclear, as this was a situation that had never occurred before, often resulting in a sudden explosion and death after waking up from a coma. This little white mouse is no longer as cute and silly as before, and has become like a ferocious beast. The bulletproof glass box has been cracked by the impact. Next second. Boom. The bright red blood splattered all over the interior of the glass box, and all the organs were shattered and scattered. Don't do this kind of experiment in the future. After calming down, Kyle fell silent and then looked at Ryan, saying word by word, with a warning in his eyes. This effect is a bit too good, so good. It's a bit scary. Don't worry, boss. I will burn up the relevant information about this experiment and never let anyone else know. Ryan wiped the cold sweat off his head and said, this scene really startled him. He never thought that liquid crystal number 7 would make animals so ferocious. It seems that the research on the 7th crystal will come to an end in the future, and we should adopt the most stable implantation method. Okay, I will have the first batch of human experimental subjects come over in a few days. Please prepare yourself. Kyle has a team of nearly dozens of people under his command, all of whom are retired soldiers introduced by Gasco, mostly aged 40 to 50. The efficiency of handling affairs is high, and they are particularly stable. Everyone has undergone formal military training and possesses excellent anti-investigation abilities. Now these people are all sent by Kyle to search for qualified experimental subjects for large-scale implantation of the 7th crystal, striving to produce more superpowers. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Rewards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Rewards. After coming out of the number 7 crystal laboratory, Kyle arrived at the underground parking lot, where Alice and Gasco had obviously been waiting for a long time. Shortly after the experiment began, Gasco called and, under the attack of throwing money, in just one day and one night, Kyle's umbrella company was approved for establishment. Now the three of them have set foot on the search for a location that can serve as a protective umbrella headquarters. 2 hours later, boss, this is already the third position I've seen. Are you still satisfied? Alice sat in the passenger seat and complained that this had seriously delayed her work. If we had known, we wouldn't have come out together. In fact, this cannot be blamed on Kyle, mainly because the positions Alice chose were too prominent and did not meet his expectations. For that task reward, what Kyle most wants are the T virus and G virus in the biochemical crisis, and the ancestor virus is also good. For various highly intelligent individuals in Marvel World, it is possible that they can use these to study virus serum that can truly lead to human evolution. The Umbrella Protection Company has been detected and approved, meeting the establishment criteria. Rewards will now be issued. Strong Artificial Intelligence Red Queen, revised, Gasco, that's it for now. Let's go back to the company. Just as Kyle was watching study materials on his laptop, the sound in his mind made him pause for a moment before speaking up. The matter of site selection can be put aside for now, and the most important thing is the reward. Although it's not the 3 items Kyle wanted, the Red Queen is enough to satisfy him with an artificial intelligence like Jarvis. Young master, there's something I need to inform you in advance. You still have a party to attend tonight and a school exam to attend in the afternoon. After glancing at the time, the three of them wandered around Manhattan for 2.5 hours, and it was already noon. It is very necessary for Gasco to remind Kyle not to be absent from the afternoon exams and evening communication parties. Don't worry, I will attend on time this afternoon. Please send Alice back to the company first. Kyle said helplessly, thinking that after 6 + 3 + 3 + 4 trials, he no longer needed to be exposed to exams in his life. I didn't expect that after traveling here, he would have to pick up his long-lost pen and take this high school exam, which really made him feel a bit tired. After receiving Kyle's response, Gasco drove away and sent Alice back to the company, then took Kyle back to the estate. In the lobby. After using the power of 9 oxen and 2 tigers to support Gasco, Kyle finally made time to check his rewards. System, is this Red Queen, the one from the Resident Evil? And what does the subsequent revision mean? Kyle was not in a hurry to extract the reward, but first inquired about the specific situation. The performance of the Red Queen was comparable to that of Jarvis, but her self-awareness was higher. If it comes to artificial intelligence, then Skynet in Terminator can definitely be considered a top-level presence. If one can obtain this thing, it would be interesting. That's right, the meaning of the revision is that it has been strengthened to achieve strong artificial intelligence, and the host has absolute control over it. Even if it orders self-destruction, it will be executed immediately. Soon, the sound of the system rang in my ears, giving me my own explanation. Strong artificial intelligence. Kyle smacked his lips, the reward this time seemed a bit amazing. It's all right now. As long as he wants, he can already interfere with the world's lifeline by relying on the Red Queen. Strong artificial intelligence can reason and solve problems, possess self-awareness, think independently, and have their own values. The subsequent Ouchwang belongs to this level, but this guy's thinking has gone astray. However, the absolute control of the Red Queen belongs to Kyle. The system, after becoming popular, should not pose a threat to this world or suddenly become uncontrollable. Before extracting, Kyle still needs to ask about this matter, otherwise he will be afraid to come and have a conversation. As long as it does not cause harm to the Earth, he will not care about it. We are still in the stage of farming and development, so Kyle needs to be humble and wait until we grow up before considering entering the universe. Host, rest assured that as long as you do not give such instructions, the Red Queen will not act independently. After receiving system support, Kyle breathed a sigh of relief and clicked the extraction button. Hello Creator, I am Queen Hong. After a few seconds of finger tapping, a pleasant female voice came from the laptop on the table, but not like the childlike voice in the Resident Evil. On the contrary, it is an adult voice with a hint of aloofness. Are you the Red Queen? After lifting her hand and opening her notebook, Kyle looked at the growing Red Queen on the screen and was somewhat surprised. How could she suddenly change from lowly to Yujia? Although I am not averse to the appearance after becoming red, I am still somewhat surprised. Report the Creator, that child's form is the appearance of the subroutine, and the ontology is what it is now. Red Queen replied that her subroutines are no less than Jarvis's sub-artificial intelligence and can run many such subroutines simultaneously. Strong artificial intelligence can already be called a god to a certain extent, making it easy for a country to collapse. Host, please be careful not to attempt to illegally complete the task using the red background. Originally, Kyle wanted to borrow $1 from everyone's account in the world to participate in a lottery, but the system's words poured cold water on him. Hey, after becoming popular, can you enter my phone? The fastest way to make money was blocked by the system, and Kyle sighed. It seemed that it had to be through his own efforts to be recognized by the system. Next, Kyle plans to allow the Red Queen to enter her phone and hand over the supervision of the company building to her. Moreover, in order to protect the safety of the company building, he also plans to install some security measures inside the building, which will be handed over to the Red Queen for management. Currently, there is an important item, crystal number 7, in the building of water company. For safety reasons, the renovation plan also needs to be put on the agenda. As long as there is an internet connection, those who become popular can freely enter and exit, and there is naturally no pressure to enter Kyle's phone. Creator, the channel has been successfully created. Do you want to connect it? As soon as I entered Kyle's phone, I created a connection channel with the control room of water company. Let's connect, and the company's affairs will be left to you, especially with crystal number 7. The monitoring force must be strong. Kyle naturally agrees with accessing the company's network, as it frees him from the hassle of dealing with endless files. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Defenders and Cleaners. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Defenders and Cleaners. Strong artificial intelligence can now replace Kyle to handle these tedious files, freeing him up more time. After going red, I will edit some of the following plans into files, and then proceed with the preparation work in this order. Next, I will make some renovations to the estate so that you can better utilize yourself. Also, in the future, don't call me creator, just call me boss. Due to the rigidity of Kyle's parents, this estate has always maintained a medieval style with extremely low modernization. To become like Stark's villa, it would probably require a lot of financial resources to renovate the estate. However, compared to the convenience and safety brought by being popular, these are not worth mentioning. Okay, boss. After dealing with the aftermath of the incident, Gasco happened to be back. Young master, they lent us a total of 65 million yuan, and the funds will be transferred to our account in batches this afternoon. After entering the lobby, Gasco immediately saw Kyle Hui reporting with his eyes closed on the sofa. The task assigned to him by Kyle just now is to borrow money from those shareholders, and after so many years of big dividends, everyone has become extremely wealthy. At present, Water Company has never planned or developed new products because Kyle's father is addicted to alcohol and sex, and shareholders do not care. As a result, more and more consumers are turning to buy other drugs with lower prices and better effects. The assets of Water Company during its heyday were close to billions. 7 people have put out so much. It seems like they are all quite wealthy. After listening to Gasco's report, Kyle opened his eyes and withdrew from the conversation with the system. It was obvious that he was a bit surprised by the news. I thought it would be good news if those old guys could spit out around 20 million, but I didn't expect to just triple his plan. Wester alone invested 55 million yuan, and he even asked me to give a message for the young master. What words? Wester, this is the old man who took the lead in appeasing Kyle at the last shareholder meeting. I hold 10% of the shares in Water Company, and I also have shares in other small companies under my name. Overall, this guy is a very serious and humorous old man who only stays at home and loses his ambition. He said, there's no need to pay back this money at all. This is his investment in you and the last investment in his life. I hope you can bring miracles. Gasco conveyed West's words, and to be honest, he was also shocked by this move. This guy basically gave the coffin book to Kyle without asking for anything in return. This is an investment that puts Wester's remaining life ahead of him. If he loses, he will inevitably end up bankrupt. Interestingly, this old man seems to have some foresight. He was included as a candidate for the 7th crystal, giving him a chance to be reborn from nirvana. Kyle has the sole right to accuse the superpowers produced by the 7th crystal, so he doesn't have as much consideration for West's implantation. Besides, whether West can survive the implantation process of the 7th crystal is still one thing. A number 7 crystal is enough for about 10 people to use, with a cost of around $700 million. Undoubtedly, this is also a big spender. By the way, young master, I have already screened out the 100 people you need. They are currently stationed at a base in the suburbs. Do you want to go and take a look? At this moment, Gasco seemed to suddenly remember something and patted his head, saying, Are we all together? Then let's go quickly. The sudden news excited Kyle and immediately pulled Gasco out. These people are of great use, as he had already called Gasco to recruit manpower 2 months ago. And the conditions set were also particularly difficult. It took 2 months to gather all these 100 people. 1 hour later. The car is parked outside an inconspicuous 3-story building on the outskirts of New York. Kyle and Gasco got out of the car and immediately entered the interior of the small building. Upon entering, the first floor is an empty hall with various exercise facilities, which are now filled with people engaged in physical exercise. The boss is here. I don't know who shouted first, but those who were exercising looked here and immediately formed a neat formation at an extremely fast speed. Young master, these are the 100 people who have been selected, each with a dozen to 10 ability, and they are all retired from the special forces of various countries. Gasco is also very satisfied with the form of these people, although they are not enough for him to play alone, but these are the current team of Kyle. Kyle always wore a slight smile on his face. These people were very commanding and had high military literacy. It seems that they can start working soon. The time has come for unscrupulous capitalists, and in order to recover the huge cost they have paid, Kyle must seize the opportunity to exploit the labor of these people. Ahem, everyone present, I'm Kyle Walter. I'm sure you all know my identity and information, but you're not sure why I'm calling you here. I know, many of you are definitely aiming for that high salary. Next, I will inform you of the tasks you need to undertake. Among you, you will be divided into 2 groups of 50 people each, serving as defenders and scavengers. As the name suggests, defender is to protect the group from being invaded by foreign enemies or infiltrated by certain agents to steal the company's confidential plans or items. Eliminators are those who need to do some shady work for the company, such as dealing with external enemies or chasing traitors, and when necessary, they also need to act as assassins. Next, you will each create your own recipe, freely distribute it, and finally sign up here. Kyle briefly introduced everyone's work below, which was also something he thought of from the beginning. He didn't want his territory to change and anyone could come in and take a look. For this reason, the role of these people is to prevent people like Hydras and those in the Divine Shield Bureau, such as Black Widows and Winter Soldiers, who require Red Queen and Gasco to take action. Those low-level agents or assassins can handle these people with just half a pound against 8 tails. Next, Kyle will first release special stomach drugs and cosmetics, and then take the opportunity to introduce the existence of the Umbrella Company, announcing that progress has been made in biotechnology. In this way, it can attract enough attention, and the speed of obtaining points will also increase, bringing profits to the company will increase exponentially. If it weren't for the huge sweetness brought by doing so, Kyle, who originally maintained a low-key development, would definitely have produced 7 or 8 superpowers before starting large-scale operations. I can't come up with the names of the 2 teams. Everyone can express their opinions and we will choose a better one later. Actually, I was planning to use something like Chaos Splitter and Nine-Tailed Fox Squad. In addition, regarding superpowers, everyone can also use their imagination to write in the comments section, and any good suggestions will be selected and displayed later. The template should include a brief description of the name, ability, and personality. If you have any ideas, you can also add a short section of your identity background. End of this chapter.